greasy paper wrappers, dripping sugar syrups, and the unmistakable taste of a great British summer. In the 1980s, heading to the coast wasn't about fine dining. It was about a handful of iconic, unmissable treats that defined every seaside holiday, from the pier arcades to the windswept beach shelters. Which legendary seaside foods made your childhood summer truly unforgettable? Nothing signaled the true start of an 80s summer holiday quite like the high-pitched, warbling chimes of a Bedford or Ford Transit ice cream van parked alongside a packed seafront promenade. The classic Mr. Whippy 99 was the ultimate coastal luxury for working-class kids. A towering swirl of aerated, ultra-smooth vanilla soft serve pumped into a brittle wafer cone, crowned with a delicate Cadbury flake pushed gently into the side, and drenched in artificial neon red syrup known simply across the coast as monkey's blood. Eating one on a traditional British seafront was a high-stakes, frantic obstacle course. You were locked in a desperate race against time, forced to balance the entire cone carefully while battling sharp coastal gusts of wind, watchful seagulls circling overhead waiting to strike, and sticky streams of white cream rapidly melting down your wrists and forearms. If you didn't lick around the bottom edges every few seconds, the soggy wafer base would give out completely, dumping the ice cream straight onto the sand. It was messy, chaotic, and the absolute highlight of any sunny afternoon on the promenade. The rich, heavy aroma of hot frying oil, sweet dough, and caramelized sugar drifting down a wooden pier on a blustery afternoon was an irresistible tractor beam for hungry holiday makers. Families were drawn directly to the small, glass-fronted kiosks, where automated countertop fryers steadily dropped pale rings of batter into sizzling oil, flipping them halfway down the track until they turned crisp and deep golden brown. Pulled straight from the bubbling fat, the doughnuts were tossed into a massive stainless steel tray, piled high with coarse granulated sugar, before being scooped into a thin, brown greaseproof paper bag. They were so scalding that you had to rapidly juggle the bag between your hands just to keep from burning your palms. Taking that first bite meant dealing with molten, pillowy dough on the inside and a thick crust of sweet grit on the outside that stuck to your fingers and left a visible ring of white sugar around your lips for the rest of the afternoon. Seaside fish and chips hit with a depth of flavor that regular suburban takeaways simply could never replicate. Cooked the traditional way in smoking hot beef dripping, thick-cut Maris Piper chips and fresh cod were scooped into massive greaseproof paper parcels, wrapped in outer sheets of newsprint, and immediately doused in a heavy hand of dark malt vinegar and white table salt until the paper began to turn translucent. The essential ritual for any 80s holiday maker was asking the server for a generous free scoop of scraps, the crunchy golden flakes of deep-fried batter fished straight from the surface of the frying vat and scattered over the chips. Balancing that boiling hot, vinegar-soaked parcel on your lap while huddled behind a striped canvas windbreak on a grey, drizzly pebble beach was the defining sensory memory of a British coastal getaway. Every bite was a mix of soggy, tangy chips and ultra-crisp batter, eaten with a tiny, two-pronged wooden fork while guarding your food from airborne seagulls. Perched along the harbour wall or the edge of the promenade, the traditional wooden seafood shack was an unforgettable fixture of historic British coastal culture. Sheltered under faded blue and white striped awnings, rows of small white plastic tubs were laid out across beds of crushed ice, packed with pickled cockles, rubbery brown whelks, and cold jellied eels set inside clear, gelatinous spice stock. Parents and grandparents would line up at the wooden counter, drenching their little pots in dark malt vinegar and a heavy dusting of fine white pepper, spearing the seafood with miniature-colored plastic toothpicks while leaning against the sea railings. For children growing up in the 80s, working up the courage to try a cold, salty cockle or a piece of jellied eel was a true holiday rite of passage. That sharp, vinegary punch and distinct sea brine taste was completely unforgettable, connecting generations of working-class families to centuries of seaside tradition. Every coastal souvenir bazaar, amusement arcade entrance, and sweet shop was lined wall to wall with wooden crates packed with traditional lettered candy rock. Handcrafted by veteran confectioners who boiled sugar in massive copper pans, pulled the warm candy over large metal hooks, and rolled it into giant slabs. Each thick sugar baton magically bore the name of the resort, whether Blackpool, Brighton, or Great Yarmouth, stamped straight through the center from top to bottom. It was dense, rock-hard sugar infused with fiery peppermint, aniseed, or synthetic fruit flavors, wrapped tightly in thick, crinkling cellophane that often glued itself stubbornly to the outer surface. Bringing home a bundle of striped rock was the compulsory holiday badge of honor. You bought them in multi-packs to hand out to grandparents, school friends, and neighbors back home as indisputable, tangible proof that you had spent a week away at the British coast, even if eating a whole stick took 3 days and risked cracking a tooth. Spun live inside giant, humming stainless steel drums along the pier boardwalk, candy floss was pure seaside theatre. Children would crowd around the clear plastic sneeze guards, completely mesmerized as the vendor twirled a long wooden stick through thin air, catching microscopic filaments of vaporized heated pink sugar until a gigantic, glowing pastel sphere materialized before their eyes. It was essentially pure colored sugar that vanished into thin, sticky syrup the second it touched your tongue, but eating it outdoors in a brisk coastal breeze required serious technique. The seaside wind would instantly catch the delicate sugary strands, whipping pink webs into your hair, across your cheeks, and all over your hands. You were forced to tear off massive handfuls as fast as humanly possible, trying to finish the entire stick before the damp coastal air and humidity collapsed the whole cloud into a hard, sticky lump. Nothing fueled an all-day marathon inside a deafening seafront amusement arcade quite like an oversized paper cup of genuine slush puppy. Sitting on the back counter of nearly every beach kiosk and pier cafe stood the iconic clear machine with the white cartoon puppy logo, endlessly churning a thick, freezing vortex of granular crushed ice behind the glass. Kids would watch with total focus as the counter attendant pulled the heavy dispenser levers, pumping rich concentrated shots of neon blue raspberry or bright red cherry syrup directly over the iced base before handing it over with a specialized plastic spoon straw. It was pure food coloring and liquid sugar, designed to turn your tongue a vivid, unnatural shade of electric blue that lasted until bedtime. Clutching that freezing cup gave you the energy to spend hours dodging the noise of coin pushers, feeding 10-pence pieces into the fruit machines, and fighting off the inevitable, piercing brain freeze after every giant gulp. Those classic seaside treats weren't fancy or healthy, but they captured the pure joy, grit, and charm of the traditional British summer holiday. If looking back at these legendary coastal foods brought back vivid memories of your own seaside trips, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are dedicated to celebrating the authentic social history and nostalgia of Britain, and your support helps us keep these memories alive. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment down below and tell me, what was the first food you begged your parents for the minute you stepped onto the seaside promenade? Let's share the memories below, and I'll see you in the very next video.